Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. There we go. Perfect. How y'all doing today?
Yeah, very good. Nice to have you on the stream, Mo.
Yeah, going good. It's sunny in Seattle today, so things are looking up already.
Yeah, we've had some inclement weather here. Like I don't know if you remember just a couple of days ago, like my actual screen on my office window, I watched it slowly peel off and fly into the lower parking lot because we had that like freak wind and hailstorm like 48 hours ago at midday, and very unexpected. And we're back to sun. So like this time of year in this state is very bipolar on its choice of weather for sure.
For sure.
Sunny over here in London as well. So getting better everywhere, I think. Finally summer.
Just starting to get the little, the final hints of spring. But yeah, it's certainly keeps me more awake during the day. And thanks for joining, Mo, on this Thursday. I know it's your first week back after FabCon. So hopefully things have been settling down for you a little bit amidst all the chaos. Yeah, exactly. Because you had 2 weeks of needing to do some stuff between either the MVP summit or that.
Yeah, we had the MVP summit. Yeah. I also went to Amsterdam for the user group conference for Power BI. I cannot pronounce it to save my life, but it was Brush something along those lines.
And in general, this is what it's our second FabCon. So just as a quick anecdote before we get into topics and everything today, what was your general feel of this year's FabCon versus last year's FabCon? Like better, worse, different?
I mean, it was much bigger. I think the number of people almost doubled in attendance from
that's awesome.
From 1 year to the year after. I think doubled or close to it felt so much bigger. And so I did the Power BI core note, which is after the keynote, there's a Power BI session, which goes through all the Power BI features. And people were standing, people were sitting in the aisles, people were getting turned away. And I don't think I've ever seen a room that full for a session. I think we had over 1,500 registered. I think more people showed up than registered, which is very strange. So I think all in all, it was a much bigger conference, and I think many more people are getting into Fabric, and I think that's really kind of driving newfound interest in many areas in Power BI.
Yeah, great to see the love for Power BI as well, with that many people turned up.
And you're going to see my cat. You're going to see my cat run and go crazy in the background.
I was going to say slightly distracted by the cat playing, but no. Honestly, it adds a bit of flavor, so it's fun. But yeah, I'm glad you guys both got to enjoy it. I mean, even last year, honestly, I had with Kurt Buehler, because I unfortunately had to skip this year, but we had 780 registered, and I think 560 showed up. Steve had 300 to 400 in his session, but there's a level of just scale where I think for most presenters, Steve, myself included, FabCon is one of those where it's really rare you get to present to that many people where you have to look back to even see the end of the audience because it's such a big room.
Yeah.
So it's certainly cool that they can draw that many, and I'm happy to hear that it was twice as many attendees this year.
Yeah, I think data in general is just exploding, right? And everyone needs data, so it makes sense. And it was just so great to we get invigorated going to FabCon. We get to see so many people, and we were still in the very post-COVID era, work from home, so it's very cool.
Exactly. Then the final thing I'll just say is that the photo of essentially the arena where normally there's fights, that was the keynote. It is surrounded 360 by people. That was a pretty cool photo of that, and a cool spot to do a presentation, essentially like a UFC fight arena. So that was fun to see. But with that, what I want to do is for the you've done live streams with me before, but this is your first time with Steve and I on Analytic Endeavors. If you want to take a moment to give a little background about yourself, kind of your position with Microsoft, and anything else you'd want to share, and then we'll use that as a segue to kind of talk about what we'll be discussing today as the topic of discussion.
Yeah, sure. So hey everyone, my name is Mohammad Ali. Yeah, just like the boxer, I am the group program manager. I effectively look after the PM team here in Microsoft for Power BI, the product. Specifically, so like you may have met Christian Wade before, we may have met Maya. I look after the self-service area, and I look after Copilot and visuals, and Power BI Desktop. So those are kind of like the areas that my team look after. And like gonna give background, I actually started I've been at Microsoft for like 13, going to 14 years. So it's a long time away and I still feel quite young, but sadly I'm not. But I started off as an engineer when I first joined Microsoft, straight out of college, then transitioned to PM, into data. I worked in machine learning for a bit as well. And then I transitioned into a PM role. And my goal was to help bring advanced analytics to Power BI. That eventually morphed into a more of a central role. And so I will, sorry, my manager is calling me, so I'm just going to hang up on.
No worries.
And I'll talk to her afterwards. But no, so that's kind of my background and my history here. And I've been in Power BI team since before we G8. So I was part of many things, many changes, many transitions along the way.
Yeah, it's been cool to watch both like your role, Will Thompson's, and a few others, all like kind of as you've evolved and moved and shifted around as the Power BI and Fabric platform has grown. And yeah, as you said, like you've essentially, like before birth, you've essentially been around with Power BI since its like conception. So I'm sure for even you watching to a degree, like you're a product of a lot of your input evolved to such a capacity that is today's got to be something you're a little proud of to a degree.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to see most of the features go from preview to GA, and also I've learned a lot. Like some mistakes along the way as well, like areas that I wish we paid more attention to, and hindsight's always, key here. But
2020.
I've been very fortunate. Like I think the Power BI community is one of the best communities, if not the best community, and purely because for us to validate an idea doesn't take us that long compared to other products, and that's one of the unique advantages Power BI has. Then I would say even Fabric to some degree, because there's so many people that use Power BI, and it just really helps. And so I don't think I ever have a shortage of opinions on what to do with the product, and it is very helpful. I'm like coming from like a world where I was doing consulting. It's just so much of a blessing to have you guys as community members going to the MVP Summit a week before FabCon and getting the feedback on what we should do to change our plans, and then validating that with customers a week later. Like it was an amazing couple of weeks. I'm tired from it, but it was an amazing couple of weeks.
And I think it's really amazing for anyone who's been working with Power BI for a long time, just to really, I think, see that how much has changed. I mean, I started working with it, as a few people have, straight after it came out. And I think for a tool to have monthly updates for, over a decade now, that's a lot of updates and a lot of cool things. Yeah. So it's been really, really interesting, and something that's kind of unheard of, previously, to have a tool that comes out and changes every single month with updates. So it's been a great journey.
It was a massive cultural shift. Like 10 years ago, when I say 10-ish years ago, I should say, when Power BI started, right? Like that was a culture shift, right? And Fabric is following along the same footsteps of those things to benefit from the things that we learned, what made Power BI successful. And I think one of the ones is like, you guys weren't waiting so long between updates. And I think that was a very important key cultural thing to do. And sorry, my cat will sit here, so I'll move my mouse. My cat has learned how to hang up on phone calls or how to turn off my computer. So I've had to put like a little box around the off button on the computer. So nice. He'll join us from time to time if he feels like he's not getting enough attention.
But yeah, I'll just to your point on like the evolution and iteration, like it was definitely a bit of a culture shift and a shock when you go from Office that gets minor security updates once a quarter and a large product update every 3 to 4 years, and to go to something like Power BI that like had to evolve so rapidly because he was needing to. There was a game of cat and mouse between a few, Tableau and other services. I think it kept all of it quite a bit fresh to need to evolve with new features. And which allowed us to also do a lot of articles and videos, which I would say was one really nice thing is we got to have Christmas like once a month on cool new things coming out. When like Power BI was in its first few years, there was continuous like monthly like game changing additions that came to it. So it was really interesting to see like products evolve that quickly, which I would say in software really hadn't been done that much before, at least within the tools that I was using on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we definitely did pave the way on I give you an example, like the Power BI desktop updates once a month. You guys are so used to knowing that it's once a month. We actually update once a week, like into production, and it takes a lot. Like almost every day we have something called ship room where we go in and just like have a conversation on what's rolling out in the week and what should be changed and so forth. So there's a lot of things that I wish people could appreciate, but I think it's really helped us really get to where we are.
Exactly. And I'll say with that, and speaking of Power BI and using that as a segue to talk about roadmap, current, future vision, and all that, where do you want to get started on kind of the topic of the day?
So I was what I thought was helpful for this audience is I was just going to cover what I covered at FabCon, just to give everyone a refresher for those people who couldn't attend. Just go through it, and I'll stop along the way on like things that I think are like our focus areas going into next year. So you guys can kind of hear my views then, and I'll look for your guidance here, Reed and Steve. Like, if you think there's an area I should focus on more for the audience, feel free to stop me. Or if you have questions, I'm sure you guys will ask. Yeah, is that helpful?
Absolutely, yes, 100%.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to check that I can actually navigate. So I'm going to go through the deck that I showed at FabCon. Now, I'm not going to go through the same level of detail, but I always talk about our mission being to drive a data culture. Hopefully this makes sense to everyone, that we want to empower everyone everywhere to make decisions on data. That's really been our mission statement that has stayed true ever since I had joined the Power BI team back in 2014 or 2015. So this has been pretty much our mission for a while. I celebrated the Power BI 10-year birthday. So this is the 10-year anniversary year of Power BI. So Power BI GA'd in July 2015, of the 24th of July 2015. And we haven't quite reached 10 years yet, but we will be this year, and I kind of celebrated it. It's funny, I think, Steve, you mentioned what did the product look like? And I showed some slides of like, how did the Power BI team form? It was like an Avengers Assemble moment. Where you have like all these classical products, they all formed under one team to make Power BI what it is today. And Power BI actually is these three things stitched together effectively. It's Power View, Power Pivot, and Power Query. And the Power Maps team and Q&A team also came under one roof. But I'm not sure if you guys remember, but this is what Power BI looked like in 2014. It had the green, it had the slide view, like more like a PowerPoint. This find a screenshot was actually took me a time from such a long time ago. And this is like when we GA'd, this is what the product looked like then. So if I show you what it looks like now, you'll see just such a drastic change, and I'll kind of speed through this. In 2015, this is what the service looked like. And again, so much has physically changed, so much has been innovated here. And then I kind of go through my highlights in FabCon of like features that I got to see or witness as they grew. So I got to see custom visuals, I think was a groundbreaking feature and really paved the way for third parties to add in things. Talk about Power BI Embed, just to give an example of like some other cool things that we did in the early years. And then I talk about like how you can just see the evolution of the service happen. In 2017, 2018, we introduced apps. We introduced a dedicated homepage. There's actually a left navigation tree that isn't your artifacts or what you have access to.
I love that you still have images of all of these, like that you still managed to keep like I'd say a lot of the lineage of the history of some of this stuff. Because like the initial color scheme and all that takes me like, it definitely takes me back.
I think in FabCon I said a joke that we had dark mode in 2017.
Like, we went from dark to light to dark. Yeah.
And that was the theme of Power BI at the start, but then we aligned with the Office themes, and that's when we lost this darkish theme. And then like, I'm not sure you guys remember, 2017, 2018 was an amazing year. We brought in so many. It was a year when Will did the driving in the keynote, where he was actually streaming data from a car off a game into Power BI, and it was just a really memorable demo for some of you guys can remember. But like Power BI had like bookmarks, my favorite or least favorite feature, depending on what day it is, because it's just such an amazing feature for what the community did with it, although that wasn't its intended purpose. And so it really broke how we thought about a feature and how the community really loved it and embraced it. But like we introduced a lot of customization, and I kind of speed through this so I don't spend too much time. AI visuals is a feature that me and the team worked on. You might know Justina. Justina worked on key influencers. I got to work on Q&A and then decomposition tree and the smart narratives visual, all were born from this team back in 2018, 2019. And then we had like cool ideas or innovations like data in space. Teams became a big thing in 2019. I wonder why. I wonder what happened in 2019 that would have caused everyone to need to use Teams more. And then we had native PowerPoint integration, which is one of my favorite features. Like I prepare almost every day a review deck of some sort. And the PowerPoint integration really simplifies my life in terms of like being able to just put the report and just saying, this is the latest report. I don't have to screenshot it, which is quite painful. And then I described 2023 as the Avengers Endgame moment, where basically we brought all of the analytics portfolio under a single organization, under Arun, and really think about the integration across all these stacks. And I think customers have been yelling at this for a while, that it was hard. And Fabric was really starting to pave the way then. And this is when we previewed. And then I talk about 2024, I talk about dark mode and light mode. I showed an actual working demo here, and you can kind of just see, like, now we actually have proper dark mode. If I go jump in this video, proper dark mode is not when the sides are dark, it's when everything is dark. And so we actually invested in proper dark mode. And I think 2024 really brought in some of the key areas that people have been yelling at. Like the new card visual, the new slicer visual came in 2024. Some of you may have seen this. I did a demo at Gartner Bake Off, where we had a really strong showing. And Italy was the example that I used, and just the report that I created for Italy was really like amazing. And I was really proud of the work that the team did here. And then we did a lot of development features, like Tyndall View came in 2024, or I think it released in Jan 2025 actually. But like there was a lot of investment. So that's kind of how I started the keynote, which is very different. I don't normally start the keynote reminiscing, but I thought this was an important year, important milestone to celebrate. And that was kind of how I started my keynote at FabCon.
Do me one quick favor, Mo. If you just want to go like bottom center, if you don't want to click the little hide icon, just to hide the sharing.
Oh yes,
perfect. There you go.
Yeah. Great. And then I started talking about the Power BI strategy, and for me, the strategy has not changed for the last couple of years. I think when we did this interview last read, I think this is the same slide I think I shared then as well, is that we really see Power BI as the glue, the bridge, the connecting tissue between two different worlds. The pro data world, which is the Fabric world, where I'm using lakehouses, warehouses, Spark, notebooks, data activator, and so forth, mixed with the business users, the office users, the people that are actually connecting to data and actually making decisions off the data. And we really see Power BI as the bridge, both connecting to your enterprise data catalog and bringing in the data, and then giving analytics at scale to these users. And this has been our vision, our strategy for a while. And if I look at the momentum, I think I think Arun did a better job than I would here, that we've like the momentum of Power BI has just been growing exponentially. Like if you look at when we released Fabric, you can just see this is the usage curve of Fabric. Like you can see this was back before Fabric launch, Power BI launched. You can just see how our users have just grown in an enormous scale. And like we have 7 million Power BI developers. 95% of the Fortune 500 use Power BI. I think the 5% that don't use Power BI have competitive products in the BI space. So I wouldn't expect them to use it. So the numbers really speak for themselves. And I talk about like leadership. I think Gartner still has Power BI well ahead and socially distancing ourselves from our competitors. But you can just see that Microsoft's the only vendor that's really if you look at the data stack end to end, is the only vendor that's really in all 4 quadrants in the leaders quadrant compared to any other vendor. And it really just shows the focus and the care we have in terms of understanding the importance of data. And I then showed sneak peeks to things. So I'll kind of go through like some sneak peeks and you guys tell me if you've seen them before. So Sajada came on stage and presented this, and I made everyone give me their favorite dramas that they watch. But Sajada presented translytical task flows, which I think is a very interesting and cool feature. Basically, it gives back the ability to do native write back in Power BI. And so I think I actually have a demo here, but I'll kind of pause at the key part of the demo. Actually, the great thing is we actually are going to be releasing what is called a input slicer. So you guys may have seen this before. I'll pause it here so I don't get distracted. We actually have an input slicer, an option on a slicer that you can actually now type in it. And when you hit a button, you can then activate a fabric function, which is a new feature. And then you can then call anything you want. You can call 10 APIs. You can call an open API, OpenAI API. You can write to a database. You can write to a Snowflake. You can write to Teradata, whatever you decide to do. And it really opens the door of really making a Power BI report more than just a report, but actually allow you to take any type of action that you want. And so this is a sneak peek because it hasn't released yet, but I think we've had a lot of people ask about when is native write back coming in, and we're very happy and pleased to say that that's very, very soon we'll be releasing this capability.
Well, I'm and as you know, for planning, budgeting, and forecasting, that's huge. I mean, pretty much every custom visual company that does paid custom visuals at least dabbles in that space because they know the amount of people out there that need it. So it's good that it's still starting to get an integration like this, starting from like essentially a single value slicer option. Just out of curiosity for like the roadmap with that from anything that is publicly available, is there a plan to expand from single value to multi-value? So like table grid type stuff, or is it going to stick to kind of slicer designs in like a 5-year window?
I believe the answer is we do want to expand it. I actually don't know exactly what Miguel has. Miguel has it on his vision board or his visuals board that he shared. It's somewhere there. I actually think the answer is yes, but I'll have to double check. It's been a while since I've looked at that.
And I'll link to that in the chats.
But yeah, so that's transliterative task flows. And so again, it was a very cool feature. And Sujata actually took it one step further. One example I love what Sujata did, she actually called the OpenAI API from a Fabric function to just show you that if you wanted to, you can create your very own kind of mini chatbot that does a very specific thing. And this doesn't have to call, obviously, OpenAI. It could call AI Foundry if you really wanted it to as well. And so you could call a dedicated machine learning model. You could call a translation service or do whatever you decide to do. And so it just really shows you like how much you can really push the envelope here in what you want to accomplish. And again, I won't go into too much detail, but like I think the demo will be shared. I think Sujata will share it on YouTube at some point, so you guys can take a look, and maybe she'll also share the report as well, so you guys can see how did we actually, what was the Fabric function doing as well under the covers.
I think this is a very interesting place that I bet you'll see a lot of interesting use cases from the community. As you know, kind of, I think when you open these stuff, people get very creative, and I see this
plus.
I see this to me as one of those ways where you can actually take action from a report. So obviously getting probably into that prescriptive side, which is always difficult, I think, because people see a report. The idea is that as they take action. So to me, I think that kind of closes that gap, and I'm really interested to see all of the cool blogs and stuff that the community are going to do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I call it bookmarks plus for a reason, because I expect the same kind of ideas and both amazing ideas and crazy ideas that the community will really take to. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to what people do with it. So that was the first. I opened up with like a really, I think, a key feature, and we didn't stop there. Emily came on stage, and Emily is a scuba diving expert in my team, and she presented a ton of announcements on what we're doing for creators. Like I describe creators as the living heartbeat of the product. Like without creators, there will be no content to share with business users, and really, I think a lot of the focus in this last year has really been how do we make the creators' lives much better and improve what we used to call paper cuts, but some of those paper cuts I think are quite deep. And so I don't like to call them paper cuts because some of them are like fundamental things that we need to go and change on the product. And one of the areas that we invested in is the desktop startup performance. So I run a very high powerful desktop, so I don't get to feel it, but my team do not. They have laptops, and we actually showed a demo of the improvement. So we took the same configuration, ran the the April build versus the March build, or March and February, I can't remember exactly which one. And we were able to show that we reduced the time to load, just open Power BI Desktop, we were able to bring it down. And a lot of that was, we found where we didn't need to load half of the services that we did. We used to load all the services, and we don't need to. And because of the deferred load, you get much better performance. And this doesn't just affect open here, it actually affects when you open up a PBX as well, that performance is also being realized. And we're also working on modeling improvements as well. So like with every modeling interaction that you do, we're trying to shave off milliseconds, like hundreds or 200 milliseconds, which eventually adds up to seconds from a user standpoint. And if you've edited a measure and then you get that spinning cycle, like we're trying to really focus on making sure that those experiences are smoother. So this is one of the ones that I think everyone will get to. Anyone who uses desktop will hopefully be like, oh no, my laptop isn't getting slow. Power BI is running slow, and I'm hoping we can start, getting this rolled out and getting more and more people excited for this.
That's a huge improvement, especially just over a single month. So like I'm sure there's lots of backend optimization that went with WebView and everything to get it to load. And as you said, also loading partial libraries. There's an art and a science when it comes to like how quickly can we get something open and ready to use. And just as a quick added, like one of my favorite things, and like back in the day of why like that famous story of like why Gmail loaded faster than any other browser is they're like, by the time somebody types in their username, as they're typing in their password, like 95% of the time they will type in the right password to go into it. So as soon as the username is typed, we already started loading their email, even without the password in, like behind the secured curtain, because we just know that that's the likely next step. So we were able to beat out every competitor on how quickly our browser loaded because of that. But those engineering, the engineering magic that goes into that and the thinking, I'm always impressed and respectful of like what goes into making those things so much faster. Because I'm sure there's a lot of gotchas and ahas to do things like you've just shown.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I'll just be very transparent. Like we haven't really focused on desktop startup performance until the last year, and like so much as the product is, as you said, evolves every month. There's just a lot of things that we're trying to replumb things or how we think about things to really just focus on these areas. And performance has been an area of focus. I think 5 years ago, open report performance used to be, I would say, not in a great place, and we really focused on it. And we brought down the time when we started with open report performance on some of the reports and the P50 and the P95s, just the time we saved or how much we brought that down was just incredible. And there's never a silver bullet. Like I'll stress, like this isn't just one thing that we just did really badly and like the time was saved. Like there's like 25 small little things that you adds up to like hundreds of milliseconds. Like we're counting down that literally like this will save 100 milliseconds. This will save 200 milliseconds. This will save 50. And we're just trying to work through that list. And so a lot of effort goes into this. And we've kind of packaged it as one kind of big update here. But like, there's just so many different things that really go in to make this. So just like want to share that as a tidbit. Like it's never going to be one thing. I wish if it was a silver bullet, we probably would have done it much sooner. Sadly, it's not the case. So
there's a good balance between, from you, I'm sure it's difficult from releasing lots of new features and going improvements. Something I have seen is a lot of emphasis, I think, in improvements on kind of stuff, which I think a lot of the community is really happy to see, and kind of closing some of those gaps, getting some of those other bits really even better as well, which is, I think, quite nice to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I said this in the MVP summit, I think read you there. Like I generally think like our focus area going into next year, really from a strategy perspective, is finish or smooth the rough edges of the product versus trying to add brand new dedicated features. Like I think we've got our key strategy around Copilot and like making sure Fabric and Power BI have a really great story. But doing anything additional to that, I don't think is really going to drastically move the needle. I think a lot of the things, the pain points are, as I said, those little things. So little things that you're like, my job is not efficient by doing these little things. So I'm hoping that will be the direction we go in this year and next year. And hopefully you'll start to see some of those things come into fruition.
Exactly. It's like you get a bunch of stuff out of preview into GA on top of like the new features, but like focus more on just on finalizing the V1s of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to go through some of these features more quickly. I'm not going to go through the demo, but we also showed the ability to create direct lake models in desktop. So before you were forced to only create them in the service, and then you could edit them in desktop. But now we're going to give you the ability to create them in desktop. And we had a demo. I'm not going to go through the demo just to save some time. Happy to share the deck afterwards if it's helpful, but I'm not sure if it's easily shared. But you can now create them here. And then one feature I really want to focus on is the community has been helping us. I think Marco Russo, Daniel Oreca, and Michael Kowalski have been creating what we call is like best practice analyzer, some things. And there was a way using Senpai, which is the ability to use using Python to call into the semantic model, which is like a library that I think has been authored. You can now run BPA against it. And so we showed a demo of where you can actually go into the Power BI service, click on a semantic model, click on best practice analyzer. And what it does is, and I'll kind of jump ahead, maybe this demo will show you, is when you click on these buttons, actually create a notebook, give you templated code so you can actually run a memory analyzer on your semantic model to assess it. And for me, this is just an amazing feature where we're leveraging what the community have done. And I'm sure many other people have worked on those projects. So I called out 3, but I appreciate everyone who's helped us here. But I just want to share, like, this is a great way of quickly like using those community templates and then just using them here. And our goal is there's going to be a community gallery for you to put your own kind of analysis tools in, whatever you want to do on semantic models. And you'll be able to do that directly inside the service by just clicking on one of these cool buttons. And you'll see there's a community button here as well. And so this is, again, a great feature here as well. I'll move on just to make sure. And then we released version history for pro workspaces. So you don't just get version history for premium. Again, we show an example of that in the conference. And then the other cool one is you can now edit your Power Query inside the web. So before, if you had a Power BI data set, you probably had to download the PBIX to edit the Power Query if you got something wrong or something broke. But now you can directly change the Power Query in the web. And this will also allow you to create a brand new data set in the web using Power Query, which you can't do today. Like, you cannot use all of the connectors that are available. And that part of the goal is to support that very, very soon. And so I just want to share, like, we're hopefully getting to a scenario where I think Christian Wade said Mac users can rejoice, because now the end-to-end pipeline for Power BI is there. Again, I won't show the demo because it's just what you guys may have seen before. And then we also brought in the fact that you can now create what we call like mixed storage mode, where you can actually have some direct lake tables and some import tables in a single semantic model. And this is really to solve the problem of, I've got a date table, I want to really import it. I don't really want to bring everything in direct lake, and I want to create measures. I want to use features that aren't available in direct lake. Well, now you can do that as well. And we have a demo to show you that as well. So we had a lot of improvements, and my favorite one is the Tyndall one. Is like, people will use Tyndall, like, hold on, I was meant to skip it. I was meant to skip the video ahead. Is like something that you get from Visual Studio, just diffs on what's changed between the two versions. Just these nice little things. Again, really, I think changes and improves the way like people function and work in Power BI Desktop. And so just these little nice things are coming. I think people are going to be super excited to see them as well.
And I'll just jump Tyndall view there. If anyone watching this, if this is new or haven't seen this, we have a good video with Rui Romano on Tyndall view, who's key in rolling this out. So definitely go watch that one. This is really, really cool. One of my favorite.
This basically allows you to script your model in a text format that is readable. And you can actually use this to make bulk changes to your model in one go, and it will execute and modify the model, or the semantic model, I should say, using the Tyndall format. And Rui Romano is a PM in the Power BI team, and he's done a dedicated video. He's the expert here, and he'll know more than I would. But this feature has been amazing. The reception of this has been amazing, and I'm so grateful for, again, Rui, the community have helped us really get there for this feature. So that was kind of the great updates that we announced. Sorry.
And I'll just also pair just mirror what Steve said, that the Tyndall view, the amount of videos that are coming out on that, like I've already done a few, like I'm actually even talking to Rui on some ideas to like get some more videos on like how many practical use cases are for that. Bulkheading, like it is the keys of the kingdom. There's such a sandbox of things that you can do with that it's a really nice like middle ground between pro developer and non-pro that gives us just so many extra features for the individuals who just won't or can't go to external other external tools. So I'm very happy that's now native.
Yeah, for sure. So then the next section that I showed was distributing of BI apps, which is just focusing on what we've done in this space. Sarah came on and presented this area. And so we had annotations in PowerPoint release. And I think this is a video of someone creating the annotations in PowerPoint, in my PowerPoint. So it's got an inception view, but you can actually add in data points and keep callouts directly in your presentation. And again, this is great for people who present a lot like I do. And
That's
you can just provide this as well. And for me, this is just, again, these small little things that people have been asking for a while, like how do I annotate visuals? We're getting there. You can also add data points as well. So it leverages what you can do in kind of like smart narratives. We can actually reference points, specific points. So you can really bring in and tell a great story with your data as well. And sorry, I was clicking the slide thinking that was my presentation. I realized it's just a video of a presentation. And then all gaps, which is a brand new way of creating applications. Like you can create, the all gap, the new one allows you to create an app, multiple apps for a single workspace. So before the old apps infrastructure only allowed one app per workspace, we released, I think maybe a year ago now, all gaps, which is the new kind of apps. And it was only available in premium, and people were like, well, when are you going to bring it for pro? And then we announced it here as well. And I showed a demo of it, but again, for time's sake, I'm not going to go through it, but you can now create an all gap in a pro workspace as well. And I'll move ahead. And then also one of the common things is in the old apps, I could create things called audiences. In the new apps, I want to be able to use these audiences as well. I want to create audiences as well. And this is good for examples where, imagine you have a sales LT leadership report, but an app, sorry, but one part of the audience of that app, like the West region people need to only see the West region reports. The US South region needs to only see the South region reports. And so basically it allows you to choose which content each audience sees rather than having to create separate apps for them. Audiences is a way to solve that problem. And so again, huge demand from the old world or the new world. And we really tried to solve some of the feedback from the old audiences feature and like give you bulk updates, bulk edits, just to make your life a lot easier for users as well. So there's a lot of like kind of just small little improvements that we made just to help users migrate as well to the new world. And again, I won't go to the demo. So that was kind of what we had for distributing apps. And then I talk about Copilot a lot. And again, Copilot, I think, is an existential crisis for strategic. I think what BI is going to transform or change the way people work with BI as AI grows and grows. I think ChatGPT has proven that each increment is slowly like changing even the way we see ChatGPT 3.5, 4 thinking or reasoning models now are becoming very big. And I assume that space is going to grow again in this end of this year when they release their next version of that model. And so for me, Copilot is an interesting area because a lot of people want accuracy with Copilot, and they don't like the fact that Copilot is sometimes flaky or it doesn't completely understand them. And so one of the areas that we heard from feedback last time, and I think even Kurt had a blog post around this, is like the accuracy isn't there yet if you just try to use Copilot against a vanilla model, a model that you just created for your reports, but you didn't really give it any understanding. And what we released is something called Copilot grounding, which is I can provide, just like a normal human being when they join your organization. Imagine I gave Reed access to my Power BI data model that I use to monitor my team. Reed will probably have lots of questions, like why do I use this field? What does this field mean? And I see Copilot the same way. Like if you give Copilot a vanilla model, Copilot won't understand the things that you would who've known that model for a while. And so Copilot grounding is, how do you teach Copilot about your model? And really the goal is to help improve the accuracy and consistency, which is the main thing, but it is to also limit what you want Copilot to understand and answer as well. And so we released this configuration experience, and I'll go into the configuration experience. And we're going to give you the ability to add in instructions, like general instruction. Like when someone asks about, I don't know, sales, use this table, don't use this table. You can also limit exactly which tables it uses as well. You can say what tone you want Copilot to use, how you want it to respond. And then you can also set up something called verified answers. And I think the demo does go into it, but I'll try to skip ahead. One of the things that we hear from many customers is, I want to, maybe the demo doesn't have it. I thought the demo had it. Maybe it's this one. Is I want to go into Copilot. Yeah, so I want to create what is called a verified answer. And what the verified answer is it allows you to basically bind a visual and say that when someone asks about product leaderboard, I want you to return this specific visual. And this is inherently something we as humans do quite a lot, is we know the business term or even the question, but the visual has fields don't completely correlate. If I say the product leaderboard, but the fields that I'm using are category and sales, I mean, even for a normal human being, that might be quite a stretch. And so we're basically using this data to effectively ground Copilot and saying, oh, the users asked for leaderboard. I know what they mean. I know which visual they mean. And I can use that visual to kind of guide me in what additional filters to add, how to interpret a question. And so it's really, I think a lot of the space and a lot of the competitors in the space are really seeing that giving some additional context to Copilot or to OpenAI or to LLM-based models is really drastically changes things. And in the conference in FabCon, we really showed our focus area in here. And the reason being is our goal is to eventually support all types of questions, from very basic questions to reasoning-based questions, like why did sales drop in 2018? And so the way we see people interacting with that experience is using a standalone Copilot for Power BI. And what this means is in Power BI Home, if you go into a Power BI website, you're going to see a button called Power BI Copilot. And when you click it, it's actually going to take you to like an M365 experience directly in Fabric or Power BI that you can ask any question about your data. And Power BI will figure out both which data set has the answer, so you don't have to go and search around, but also return you the answer in the view as well. And the reason why I focused on configuration first is our goal is once you configure Copilot, you can use this Copilot experience to query the data, your business user can, but I can also go in Office and query my data there in Office. And I can use it to be like, I could be in an email and saying like, what is the sales number for the West region? And I can ask Copilot and everything can come in a connected world. That's why we're really emphasizing that if I did that normally without any sort of configuration, Copilot has so many models that you have access to read. I'm sure you're like me, like has a very messy environment. And really that's where the configuration piece comes in. And so this is an experience that we're releasing soon. And the private preview that we've been doing for this, a lot of business users, I think, are really in love with this. And a lot of the creators are really trying to get their configuration, like they're really pushing to get their configuration done so that business users can get value out of it. And so this is what this experience will look like. And I think like when you type in a question, you get a visual in line. I'll skip ahead. And I'll pause here just so you guys can see. When you ask a question, there's multiple things that can match that question. We actually, again, like you do in Google, right? Like, or when you do in a search engine, right? Like when you type in a question, we're here to help you, guide you to the right answer. And we look at relevance. We look at people related to you, read. Like if you're in an organization and your colleague or your best friend is looking at the data as well, like we rank the things based on what you think that will return the answer. So there's a lot of investment happening in both the consumption experience, but configuration, which I think is going to drastically improve the accuracy and it's going to be like, I think, the key feature that is really going to change even the roadmap of Copilot going into in the next 6 months.
Quick question on this in terms of the, like, in a perfect world, you've had all the data prepped, you've been curated, but like there are a lot of companies that, do quite a bit of data siloing where there is 85 copies of the same model and stuff like that. So would there be an option at the item or like the workspace level to just say, yes, this can be used for search, no, this can't be. So you can essentially just filter it so you don't end up with 85 recommendations for like which report it should be.
Yeah. So I didn't go through all the customizations, but you will be able to customize whether it gets shown. And if you haven't prepped it or you didn't like prep it for Copilot, we'll actually give a warning message as well to tell users that no one's actually done anything in Copilot to kind of prevent accidental decisions being taken on the data.
Perfect.
So there's a lot. Again, I'm brushing the surface. There's a lot more complexity involved. But it's a really good question. Yeah. We get asked that feedback, and I think we're also going to give the control at the domain level. So at the domain admin can also say like,
nice.
I don't want my data exposed in Copilot yet. Like I'm not ready, and we want to give those controls. We think those are really going to help users really adopt it much easier.
Perfect.
And then I think let me just skip ahead here. I think we announced, like the final key announcement is we brought Copilot in all FSKUs. Like today, or it's still today, it's releasing at the end of this month. But today, Copilot is only supported in F64 or P1. April the 30th, it's going to be supported in all FSKUs. And so if you are a small-time developer, just want to test out Copilot, and you want to get an F2 SKU, you can do that. If you want to use an F4 or F8 SKU, you can do that as well. And so this is feedback that we got directly from the community. And for me, this really opens up the door of people validating Copilot, testing it out, doing the configuration, as you said, to just get in a good position for Copilot. And this was a long time. This took a while in terms of effort to get here, but we announced this, and I think it's releasing at the end of this month, April the 30th.
I'm sure a lot of people will be happy with that. And then just the ability to use a lot of the Copilot features in desktop, even for modeling. So many things that will be save on time and efficiency. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think I ended it on I'll share it here just so you guys can see. This is the roadmap slide that I shared, which just goes through all the features that I kind of showed. I think it has some features that I hadn't showed, but like just to give you an idea of what we're doing and so forth. And like that kind of rough timelines as well.
And I'm thinking too, go ahead.
That was just going to say, sorry, Braid. I was just going to say that was pretty much what I showed at FabCon. Like that was what I presented, and we got I think the audience is very happy with the investments. Someone did come to me and said, hey, where are the visuals investments? And we've done a lot of visual and stuff. I just didn't have time in this session to go through everything in Power BI, but we are making a ton of improvements in visuals. And I think Miguel will do a dedicated session at some point for everyone to see of all the things that we're going to do in visuals. It's just, we had an hour and we're running hot on time. And so we were going to give a dedicated session just for what we're doing in visual space. I get a lot of questions about that. And so I hope Miguel will cover that soon.
Well, and one thing that I'm doing with him now is I'm partnering with him in the community, and on my other channel with him in consulting once a quarter, we're doing basically like a recap. So what has happened in a discussion around what's come out in the last quarter and what will be coming out soon, because it can be a bit nebulous sometimes to figure out exactly what hasn't been released, just because so many things are coming out. So I'm trying to help support him a little bit on getting transparency out to the community on that stuff, and get somebody from him or his team to join for those. So yeah, exactly. A question for you on some of this stuff is we have a little bit of time left. Would there be any of these we could like maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive into if we were to cherry pick a couple of these at all, or?
Depending if I have a demo for them, but I'm okay to talk and deep dive in some of them if you have a specific one that you'd like to deep dive in.
Yeah, well, one that I think is pretty paramount is version history. I know that's been huge because like it's been such a pain point before of like trying to like you need to save your files and wonder why, because there's no history in the service if you publish a breaking change. So I think that's going to solve a lot of pain points. So like any more information around that, or again, if you have anything on that, otherwise I can pick another one.
I'm not sure if I have any demos for it. Let me just go back. Let me just see if I have something on this. So like, I mean, I think it's a very similar demo to what we shared last time. Let me just mute just so you guys can see. I think in version history, one of the things that we showed is like, it's like the Office kind of gesture, right? Like if I just, oh wait, hold on. I think this shows, okay, no, it worked. Like you got a model here that's missing some relationships or whatever. Someone made a mistake with the model. And you can go in and click version history, and you can, I'll just pause it there for 1 second. You can actually force the save of a version. So like if you're one of those people that are really pedantic and you're not sure if a version has been saved or not, and you just want to create a version, what we do is when you create a version, which is why it's, I think we store, I can't remember how many versions we store. I think it's 5, but we store 5 versions with both metadata and data. So imagine a scenario where like your data refresh got some bad data and you need to kind of roll back temporarily in the day to a previous version to just power your existing analytics for that day while you fix upstream or downstream problems, right? Like the version history feature allows you to basically go and roll back to even a data version. Like even if you haven't made a model change, roll back to a previous data version as well. And we debated for a while, should it be metadata only first? Is it okay to force people to do refresh? And our goal is we want to give you a lot more versions. Like Office does this as well. Like I'm not sure if you guys know how Office works. Is if me and Reed are editing a Word document, Word doesn't actually create a version per like click, right? Like it's not that crazy, but it actually groups together it has a job that runs every X minutes. I can't remember the time it runs, but it groups all the changes together and says, I'll create a version for them. So like sometimes you might find that like mine and your changes are together in a version, even though it has your name on it, because it has your last change on it. And that's by design just for scale. Like it doesn't scale to create a version per individual. In the same way, in our case, like depending on the action that you do, like if you save a specific version, if you exit web modeling, if you do a publish action, we then save a version automatically for you. And like at some point, I think like this opens the door for doing snapshotting in some future view or some future where you want to see a snapshot of your data in a previous version, and then eventually use that snapshot in it, like in your own data model. But for me, this really just is a feature where web modeling was people wouldn't use web modeling. Like in desktop today, you can save your model locally. And then when you're ready to publish it, that's your trigger. In web modeling, it was just so much easier to make a mistake. Like it happened to us when we were doing demos, it happened, I assume, to everyone. And so version history just became paramount. And we wanted to make sure it didn't just work for web modeling, it worked for any scenario. And that was kind of the key decision that we made. And again, we're just scratching the surface with this feature. But like we argued for a while, I think several meetings, I think we discussed is it metadata only? Is it data only? Is it, do we do both? Or do we store more versions of metadata? And we kind of just settled on an initial one, and we're waiting for you guys to give us feedback on it. Do you guys like it? What other improvements would you like on it? Is there any other triggers that you like on it? Like I'll give you an example. Like if you use XMLA endpoint against a semantic model, the reason why we have a purpose saved to version history and an API for this is if you wanted to, as part of the API, you could also call and save the version as part of an API request as well. And that's, again, to support people using third-party applications. Like if you're using Timdo Editor, if they want to go and add it, you can as well. So really,
and just to confirm, for the current first version, is it metadata only or metadata plus?
It's metadata plus
the data. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is for a myriad of it's more expensive to store, of course, but I do think that solves more problems than it creates versus metadata only. Of course, you'd have to then roll back to the data. You'd have to do a refresh. You'd add incremental like a lot of other problems would come with that, but you'd just be more storage efficient. So I think this is a good V1, and I'm sure there'll be some complexities when you have the potentially large format models. I don't even know, would it be available for large format semantic models, or just like the smaller?
I believe actually we convert, so we actually convert your model from small format to large format when you do version history, because large format
interesting.
Is what enables version history today. Because the way the format is stored. So today, you in small format mode, we have this thing called ABF, which is this monolithic data and metadata in one big like blob kind of thing. When you move to large file format, it actually allowed us, like the files are in a much more contained view, and so really opened the door for version history. And I think this was built off the same kind of capability as not snapshotting, I can't remember the other word. It's when it was built off another feature, I can't remember the feature's name, where you could basically export the model metadata and the data as separate files, and it wasn't just one big blob. And that really opened the door. Because what happens is when we save a version, we know what's changed in the version as well, in the sense that we take an entire copy of all the files, but as you're making changes to the model, we're not regenerating a new model with data every time. In desktop, if you know, and the reason why desktop is slightly slow is every time you make a model change, we're generating a new file with the entire model in it. And again,
Yep.
in large file format, we don't do that. It's a physical modification of the file. So that's like, just to explain architecturally, like large file format is what enables version history, and that's why it only works there. So if you're trying to use it on small format, I think we convert it on the fly for you.
Okay, that's good to know. Oh, the other follow-up question I have on that is in version history, can you go into the list and like just choose to add comments at all if you wanted to? Like whatever, you can save it manually, which hopefully you could add a comment on, but either or could you type in?
I actually don't know.
Okay.
And the reason why I say I don't know is I remember seeing the spec, which had comments in it. I just don't know whether we added it in or we said we'll do it post public preview, because we may have got feedback saying it wasn't the most important thing to add comments. I'll have to double check.
Maybe it on the backlog, if not, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm really sorry. Like I can't remember what we decided. And the demo, I know when we recorded it, we didn't show that flow.
I must say though, I'm
go ahead.
Pro save data as well, because I just imagine rolling back to a version, waiting an hour for it to refresh, and then realize it's the wrong one, and then I could see that.
For sure.
I'm definitely pro data. You also have obviously Git and all of those other options if you want to.
Yeah, for sure.
Full
and that was one of the things we discussed. Is like, should we be doing like, is metadata just by Git, or do we need to like kind of do Git on behalf of you so that you're not forced to use Git yourself? So I think there's other workarounds for doing metadata, and hopefully we'll make it native in the product so you don't have to go and figure it out yourself. But we did metadata and data pure. Again, I think the MVPs and others gave us strong feedback for doing both. So I really appreciate that connection that we have with you guys.
Yeah, and I'm always enjoyed with the MVP community and just the pro community in general, the ability to provide some of that feedback and help to provide external voices to, even at a minimum, just be a sounding board. Like, are we on the right track? Should we have two paths to take? And we're asking the wise old man at the fork in the road, which is the best path. So it's nice to be included in some of those for sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in general, just kind of bringing to the central topic of resources and everything as we're kind of closing up. Are there any recommended links or anything else, resources to check out to look at some of the stuff that you were mentioning? I already linked earlier the Power BI Core Visuals Vision Board, but for any of the stuff that you've shown, well, what would be the best central source to like check in on some of these things if there is any?
I think it's. I think we have a Fabric blog for this that covers it, like not the Power BI blog. I'm referring to the Fabric blog. A lot of the things I just showed you here are actually mentioned on that blog. So if you want to link that, read that would be my best place where you get the latest and greatest updates. And obviously, like we got other conferences coming soon where you're going to see just general updates on those blogs. Like Build is coming soon, so you'll see kind of some announcements there. And then we've got FabCon Europe as well coming in four-ish months. So like there's a lot of still pending announcements to come. And so the blog is the best place to kind of catch up on like where we are.
I just linked that. And then, as you said, Build's coming up, and I'll also be at, it's the con that's going to be in like June that Microsoft's hosting, PowerCon, DataCon, all that stuff that Steve and I will be presenting at. Cool. Excellent. Then I'll say, Mo, thank you for coming on for this. This has been fantastic. We got a lot of really good updates, and I think there's a lot of cool stuff on the roadmap for sure, and continuously more and more enterprise features, but not just for Fabric, for desktop especially. And I think that's going to be paramount as the marriage stays so tight between the two of them. But just making the development experience that much better for the citizen developer, but also the pro developer.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, thank you guys for having me. It's been great to kind of go through the updates, and I look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, and go enjoy the sunny day here in Seattle. And,
Yeah.
We'll see you online next time.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.